Right. And we all
Of course.
stopped immediately.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to have a podcast that's called 5 Seconds of Silence.
I love it.
When that happens, you just walk away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 seconds of silence.
Felix, do you have your
And-
glass of water ready? Glass of water and beer ready?
Right.
There
Yeah.
you go. You are live.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a glass of water. I actually went shopping for beer this time since we did the whiskey thing last time. And I found this cool Gentleman's Relish English brown ale. That's
Ooh.
a local thing. What's the name of this company? Lone Pint Brewery in Magnolia, Texas. And it's quite scrumptious. Did I say scrumptious? Wow. It's
That's what
quite
you said.
tasty.
I procrastinated, so I got some Stella curbside last
perfect.
minute today.
We
Can't go wrong with Stella.
happen to
Oh, no,
have
you
some
can't.
good beer in our fridge. So
What do you
I'm
have?
drinking the Power of Flight from El Segundo.
Oh, nice.
It's a very plain can with just a small plain there, but El Segundo Brewing from
Here's my
also
wallet.
local out here for me.
Very
Come on.
nice.
Who got the reference? Here's my wallet. Speaking of old school hip hop,
You lost me, man.
Sam, you were a
Yes.
bass player for an old school hip hop band, right?
I was a bass player for an old school hip hop band. Yeah, I actually had dual roles with that band. I started with them as their production guy in their running front of house and monitors from a relic in this day and age of the digital consoles on an LS932.
Oh,
And see, but that's what I learned on. So that's what I hear from everybody. But that's what I learned on and what I always worked on with that band. So it worked for me. But having played with some other consoles, I understand where you're coming from.
yeah. There were very few digital consoles that were harder to use than that console. In retrospect, at the time, it was just like, this is amazing,
This is
but
great.
yeah, but there's in retrospect, there are very few consoles. But once you learn that, like, you've done the hardest thing. It's like getting thrown off into the deep end and like swim,
Right.
After that, anytime it's like, oh, this is easy. It's a
This
breeze.
is easy. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that for 3 years and then made the jump on stage and a bass player, much like you, Felix. Played bass with him for another 4 years after that and sang and rapped and the whole 9 yards and my Adidas and sunglasses and gold chains and 12 watches and rings and, the whole thing.
Awesome.
It was a good time.
And you left that to move to California, right?
I did. So just a little bit of my background. I've been with Shure for, 6.5 years now. It'll be 7 years in the spring. And I was in customer service for most of that time. So I did the hip hop cover band while I was in customer service. And then about 1.5 years ago, moved into the sales role. I covered the western half of the US. And my boss, Rick Renner, really wanted somebody based in LA for our pro division. Understandable, a lot of business is happening here in LA, close proximity to Las Vegas. A lot of production happens in those two places. So I gave up the glamorous life of being a weekend warrior, hip hop cover band, rock star, whatever you want to call it. The glorious life of having more than one job to move to LA and for the first time in my life have one job.
Awesome. How do you like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot so far. I think I'd like it more if COVID wasn't a thing. It's tough.
You actually
to
had
move.
events?
Yeah, if we had events, if I could go see customers, if I could go to restaurants and bars and clubs and get to know this new city that I'm in. I think we got a solid 4 months before the world shut down. So we were getting there, but
oh, that's true. You moved right before.
we moved here at the end of October last year. And then everything shut down mid-March. So we got about 4.5, we got about 4 months before the world shut down. So we're looking forward to it. The list of things to do once it all opens back up just keeps growing and growing and growing. So at least we got that.
Right. Well, and like the whole reason that you moved out there was to be closer to, like you said, the LA Vegas production side of things. And that's just not a thing right now.
Close to customers, and it's you just can't do it right now. But that's okay. I get to do all these Zoom calls with you guys. I've got a phone. You guys know that life. We just live on our phones all the time, even in a normal world. So
right,
at least we've got that.
Exactly. Now, we brought you on board because we want to talk gear, right? This
Absolutely.
is beer and gear, and we should call it for today. We should be beer, gear, and beard, because
Yeah,
a little facial hair.
we're all rocking pretty good.
Feeling a little inadequate here, you know. You
Yeah,
guys
you
are
got
really,
a little empty space on the sides there,
yeah.
Wes. But
You guys are really making me feel bad. I'm gonna have to start growing that out. And now
It
it's
takes
getting
him
cold
about
and
it takes him
leisure.
about 2 days to get full on the side. So
yeah, I believe it's not going to take any time to catch up.
So what do we have today? We're gonna talk Duraplex, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Awesome.
our brand new lavs.
Yeah, and I can actually show a picture. So if you want to start talking about it and tell me,
Yeah,
and I don't know anything about it. Which, by the way, that's what I'm using right now. I have a lav here.
Well, you sound fantastic, Felix. Even
Oh,
better
you
than
do too.
even
What
better
are you
than Wes
using?
does. I am also using Duraplex right here. I've got my lav pinned up. I'm going through my wonderful SLXD wireless system because all of my other wireless is out on loan right now. But hey, SLXD is good. It does the job too. But that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, Duraplex. So this is our brand new line. It's our new sub-miniature lavalier line, both lavaliers and headsets. It fits, or I should say it fits. It's a 5mm sub-miniature lav. And I know you guys are familiar, and some of the folks watching might be familiar with our Twinplex line that came out almost 2 years ago now. And this is kind of a sibling to that. It shares the same Plex cable, as you might guess from the Plex at the end of the name. But the element is a little bit different. So this uses a MEMS element, but it still gives you that a very full but very natural sound. And then one of the big things that's really cool here is that it's IP rated. So for anybody who's not familiar with IP ratings, that stands for ingress protection. And that has to do with the ability of the element to keep dust and solid particles out, as well as water and moisture out. So the Duraplex Lav is IP57 rated. The 5 is the dust protection on a scale from 1 to 6. So that means that while it's not entirely dust proof or dirt proof, it is very resistant. So if you need to do something on location and you're in the desert and it's windy and blowing or whatever, this is a great lav for that. You know, stuff's going to get kicked up, the wind's going to blow, whatever, but you're still going to be very protected. And then the 7 is the water rating. So Duraplex is rated to be in water for up to 30 minutes and can be submerged up to 1 meter and come out and still be usable without any negative effects. Felix, do you have a demo for us by any chance?
Yeah, but it's beer and gear.
It's beer and gear. Okay.
It's not water and gear.
It's true. It's not water and gear.
Yeah. So do I have your permission to do this, Sam?
Man, it's your mic. You can do whatever you want with your gear.
Let's just see.
Oh, that's a weird noise.
Yeah, that was cool. I don't think I've ever heard a lav inside a beer bottle before.
That's what
I
I was
like
about
that
to say.
sound coming out. That was awesome.
like
Can you
that.
hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah,
can.
it's fine. Yeah.
And just
I am
like
not
that,
going to lick the microphone. That would be weird.
Felix,
There
what
we
you do
go.
on your
I
own
do have
time
one.
is what you do on your own time is none of our business.
That is definitely a first for me. I've been doing audio for a very long time, and I've never heard a microphone, a lav mic, go into
Inside a beer bottle?
beer. Yeah, I've
That was
heard
cool
a
sound.
58 go into a pint, but I've never heard a lav into a beer bottle.
I should sample that later. That'd be fun.
That was the first thing that popped into my head when I heard that. Was like, oh, that's cool. I have something to do this weekend now.
That can be a snare.
That's funny.
If you got enough time, it can.
Good. So what would the main difference be between because that's something that I'm always going to come up. Not only price point, but
Right.
why would somebody go with this versus Twinplex and vice versa?
Yeah, so I think there's probably a couple different reasons to go one way or the other. Obviously, the IP rating is a big one, right? If you need that, if you are you know, if you're a location sound mixer and this is a reality show and you know it's either water based, or we've all seen reality shows and for whatever reason there's always a hot tub and the talent is in the hot tub for no reason at all. If you if you know
Oh, there's
if you
a reason.
know that's gonna, well, yeah, you know, but
Just
if
wait
you're in
till the
those
next
kind of
beer and gear
situations,
in a month, and we're gonna do it in a month. Actually.
So, you know, if you have that sort of application and you know it's coming up and you know you need that kind of additional protection in your lav, that would be a really good reason to go with Duraplex. Twinplex, on the other hand, you know, I talked a little bit about how the capsules are different, but to go into that a little bit more, Twinplex is a dual diaphragm capsule, which means it has twice the surface area of which you'd normally find in a 5mm capsule. And so what that really means in a practical standpoint is that without a lot of fiddling, without a lot of processing, you can slap that lav on somebody and know that it's going to sound really full. It's going to sound like that speaker, that presenter, that singer, that performer, without having to do a ton of processing to get it right. So if you are looking for that lav that you can hide, that's still going to sound good, then Twinplex is going to be the way to go. The other thing that having those dual diaphragm has, and it's also side firing. So instead of, you know, an end fire element, it's side firing, which means its off axis performance is phenomenal. So for example, something like theater, where you need to hide it as a wig mic, or you're doing an ear mic back here, things like that, you can put it in these places where traditionally you might get a less than ideal sound out of a lav element, and know because you've got that dual diaphragm, that side firing, you're going to get something that sounds much, much better, much truer to whoever that performer is. Again, right out of the gate before you add any processing to it. Those are kind of, in my mind, and when I approach it, those are kind of the big takeaways that I start to talk about why you might lean one direction or another. And then, of course, Felix, as you said, price is always a factor, right? Mm-hmm. So the lavs, the Duraplex is going to be a fair bit cheaper than Twinplex is. So depending on budgetary needs, you know, that may come into play as well, or who the users are. If you're a middle school theater program and you don't have that kind of money to drop on Twinplex, but you want a small lav that's going to be concealable and still sound really good, but not a big old honking thing that's bolted onto a costume somewhere, Duraplex becomes a much more affordable option in that sense.
Yeah, can we talk about that Plex cable too? I did a video where we actually showed the pull strength of it, and it's like 50 pounds of pull strength on that thing before it starts to not function, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. Yeah. So that Plex cable, so when Twinplex was in development, we spent something like 7 years working on that mic and getting it right. And over the course of that time, on the cable alone, we had engineers working just on that cable for like 6 years, because it was something that we wanted to improve on and we wanted to get right. You know, you guys, and I'm sure our viewers are familiar with lavs, and more often than not, when you're going to have a failure point, it's that cable. Maybe it's in the middle of the cable, but oftentimes it's near the connector, it's near the element, but it's more often than not, it's the cable. It's not one of those other pieces. So in true Shure fashion, we wanted to make sure we got it right. You know, we wanted to make sure that what we were giving you, what we were putting into the market, is something that could be relied on. So inside that cable is this kind of double helix spiral that runs the entire length of the cable, and that makes it incredibly strong. But it also is dual redundant ground. So not only is that cable much stronger than anything else on the market, including other Shure lavs, but it also effectively, if you run into an issue and you start to break it, you basically have to break that cable twice in the exact same spot before you start running into issues, before it stops passing audio. And just as a fun anecdote about the strength of these cables, you guys know well, that we built what we call the Flex Spot when we started working on these, and it's a little robot that we clamp the cable into, hang the loose end down, quite literally tie a knot in the cable and hang a weight from it, and then just let the machine flex back and forth like this and count how many times it goes. And what we found when we were testing Twinplex is that we got up over 100,000 flexes on the Twinplex mics. For comparison, a traditional lav and cable that's out there on the market, you're gonna get about 1,000 flexes on this Flex Spot, give or take. And we were up over 100,000 on Twinplex. And even at that point, Twinplex didn't actually technically fail, but it had been running so long that they really needed to take that mic and start doing other testing. So they just pulled it off of the Flex Spot.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay, it's still going. Can we just stop now? Because I got other things I got to do.
Exactly. So just as that's a kind of fun anecdotal story about that initial testing that we did with the
electric bill for the robot is insane because nothing is breaking it.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Another thing that I do want to make sure that it's really hard to translate through Zoom, and it's the size, right? Because I've been doing demos through Zoom, people go like, "Oh yeah, it's small." Like if you compare it to a dime, for example, that's what you're dealing with in terms of size. So, which is really impressive how small the thing is.
I was prepared for that too, and I don't have a great background, but just as a point of reference, here's Duraplex. This is your standard WL185. So for those who are familiar with the WL series, you can really see
so tiny
the difference there. It is significantly smaller than what has been a standard lav for years and years and years.
Right.
Good. This is what we needed you for, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's great. It's 2:45 out here. You guys are done with me. I'm just going to call it a day on this Friday and go keep drinking beer, I guess.
That's funny.
Well, you heard it. He's not working anymore today.
Yeah. Everybody paying attention to that.
Good. Sam, thank you so much, man.
Of course, guys. Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I could join you.
Wes, thank you. This is Beer and Gear. See you in a month.
See you guys.